Hey everybody, welcome to another Traders Roundtable by Deus X DAO. I'm Rture, but I'm joined by Libs and Syra today. So we are going to talk about Bitcoin, the S&P 500, and Ethereum. It's all longer term, but you'll get the opinion of three traders. So before we kick off, how are you all doing? We had quite a market volatility after the FTX collapse. Some people got hurt, including me, but it seems all part of the game. But still, it's not a good time for some people that had a lot of funds on the exchange. So, just checking up. How's everybody doing?
Well, luckily, I had no exposure to FTX, but yeah, I know a handful of people who lost a lot of money. It's very unfortunate. But yeah, I trade on Bybit, so everything is safe for now.
Yeah, man, the whole FTX stuff is incredible what happened. Like, I think it shocked the whole community. Everyone is an extreme. I think we could say that it's maybe not a black swan, but close to black swan because this is crypto and shit happens. So and nothing in crypto is like a black swan. But man, that was insane. I'm lucky I didn't have a lot of funds on FTX though. I know a lot of people did, so I'm sorry about that. Insane. I think how do you think this will affect crypto long term? I mean, we're going to be talking about the long term perspective here on crypto and Bitcoin. Do you guys think this will have an effect on the crypto markets long term?
Yeah, I think it does, especially if a lot of market makers get pushed out of the market or lose a decent chunk. We see that even funds that have less capital to allocate, so they might need to raise again more funds, have to come back to their LPs, like, hey, we fucked up on our risk management a little bit, and then get back into market. And that takes some time, of course. And then on top of that, the trust has to come back. And I think it was actually a really good point for DeFi. I think in the last 2 weeks after the FTX collapse, we saw the DEXs and perpetual trading on chain going up in volume. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on that. But it shows again that self custody is the way to go in crypto. So yeah, of course it will recover, and actually real crypto, as in DeFi and as in self custody, wasn't hurt. It was actually an argument for that. It was just a pathway towards that has been broken down. So
So you think so?
yeah.
Do you think it will? Do you think this will, in a sense, strengthen Bitcoin while weakening? We had that argument saying, Bitcoin, not crypto. Do you think it will strengthen Bitcoin while perhaps weakening crypto in a sense?
I think it actually will strengthen Ethereum more, especially because most of DeFi is there. Bitcoin doesn't have a lot of DeFi. There is some, but yeah, of course, like the Bitcoin maxis will still push the point that self custody of your assets, which is Bitcoin, is better. And then, of course, they will point to FTT, that it's another shitcoin there to take your money. Like it's the same old argument over and over again. And in a way, they're correct. Like that Bitcoin is sound money, and it's good to do some self custody stuff like that. But the same would be true for Ethereum or something like that. So I think it's more about, like, we have to build these decentralized applications where users can connect their wallet and use their funds and trade that, or put it in some yield protocols to get some interest, or something that hedges their inflation. But as long as there is not some third party managing that and can send that basically to their market maker, then it's fine. But yeah, it will take some time to build all those protocols and newer ways of doing self custody properly, because there is still to be gained on the UI UX perspective there. So yeah, we'll see
on the regulatory standpoint, like I feel that some type of body needs to step in, especially because of what just happened, right? But because if they don't, then these things will continue to happen. People will continue to take advantage of the fact that they can easily get away with these things, right? So for me, it's a net positive. It's a net positive that this happened. Just like how, what was it, Mount Gox, right? Mount Gox was sort of like the first domino that fell way back when, and that gave birth to more trustworthy exchanges. Obviously, there are some bad eggs, but again, this will keep happening until some kind of proper regulation is put in.
Yeah, and that's true. But like the other side is, if the chain regulates itself, or like the code is law principle, you can have some form of regulation too, where people like self-regulate. But it will probably be somewhere in the middle, where we see regulators crack down on some of these bank-like institutions with more control and more insight into these funds, but also probably some rules around DeFi for sure. Shall we look at the Bitcoin chart and see what the result was of that crash and where we see it going next? Who wants to kick it off?
I can.
Okay. Let's show some candles.
When did FTX actually happen? What date did everything kind of, was it around the beginning of November somewhere, right? Was it the 8th or the 7th or something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was like it started around the 7th and 8th. The 8th is really when it really
yeah, wow, it's quite obvious looking at the chart right here. It reminds me of Luna. I mean, you can look at the chart right there, and it's quite obvious where Luna happened as well. It's like the same type of panic mode.
Yeah. So let me just see if I can do this. 1 second. So we were in this nice channel all the way up until the FTX thing happened, right? And when that happened, and this was a channel that was going on for, I think it was like 100+ days, right? So you have 148 days around about. And this is why I'm still kind of, you have to be bearish until certain levels are reclaimed. But for now, we've broken down this 150-day range. And generally, when you have a range this long, there will be some kind of follow through. By the way, I really like this channel because like the middle line was totally respected quite well, right? You can see also that there was a high volume node. So if you pull a fixed range all the way up until here, right? So where that middle line was, we didn't quite get to the value area high, but there was a high volume node right there, which is also where we rejected from. And this point of control, like around maybe a month before, this was up here, and before that it was up here. So these are sort of areas of interest, and yeah, we did get the rejection off of this previous high volume node. Where we stand, I think, on the high time frame, it's all quite bearish, right? So if we go all the way back and we put on this, where is it? I think it was this one. Yeah, so I think this is the Corona. No, I'm sorry. This is a 2015 low. So this trend line has been broken. And this is this is from 2015. This is the log on the log scale. So like, we break this trend line, and then this is somewhat of a back test, and then down. So what I'm seeing right now, and how I'm sort of playing this is, well, it's trade the range until it breaks, right? And right now, on the 15-minute, I'm watching for this range. This is sort of where I'm trading, right? So I'm gonna continue to trade this current range that we're in until it breaks. I think, what is it? It's like 80% of the time Bitcoin is range bound, and so as of right now, there's no reason to say that, okay, we're gonna break lower or we're gonna break up higher, because currently we're just simply range bound. If we break up to the upside, I think that the largest sort of area to be paying attention to is the point of control of, well, if you take all of this, no, that's not it. Is that it? No. Here. It would be this 19,100 area, right? Around here is where I would expect to see some kind of big reaction, right? So, let's say we're range bound, we get up to here, and then we'll see. This is like whatever happens here will be the deciding factor of whether or not we go lower, or we sort of do this reclaim and then back up. So that for me is what I'm looking to see, and we obviously don't know until we get there. But yeah, generally this is what I'm looking at. I do have. Yep, go ahead.
How do you how high do you judge that chance basically for price retracing back to that high volume node? Because as you said, it's basically a 4 to 5 month range there. It broke out to the downside. That's not to be taken lightly. I wouldn't definitely bet my longs on it that it would retest. So how likely do you think that is?
Well, so this I found kind of interesting, right? So, goddamn, we were, we had a few different long or high time frame ranges in the past that were not retested. So I believe one of them was, let's see if I can just do this. One may have been, no, that's not it. Sorry, I'm just sort of like doing this right now.
I would also be interested in, after you're done with this part, like I would be interested in knowing, if you had to bet on more downside in the let's say we're getting like 3, 4, maybe 6 months of downwards price action. Where would you say is the highly likely, most probable high time frame bottom? What's the level that looks like the obvious bottom if we have a 6 months downtrend?
Well, I like this. I like
Yeah.
the area between, like, 8K, 7K to 10K. I mean, really, if we get down to 10K, obviously there are levels in between. So like this previous high, okay, let's just go to the monthly. Okay, yeah. So this was like a monthly level where these months opened and closed, and it was respected again here. And so I would like to see some kind of reaction if we do get there. And if we break, then that opens the door to, like, even lower levels, 6K, 9K, these kinds of things. But for now, we're obviously not even there yet, and that's still a long ways away. But I am looking at this area first, if we do get down there.
I think that's that, and my analysis will show that is the level I'm looking at as well. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know where the fuck this. Hold on, maybe. Actually, you know what? This is better. Here we go. There we go. So these are channels that, for example, this horizontal channel was sort of well intact from the 2021 March drop. We went back up, we went down. We never got the retest. Maybe you can say that this drop and then up a little bit was the retest, but we still haven't really gotten back up there to retest this 28K level, which I think we all can agree there's big resistance between 28 and 30. There was also this channel, which also again was not retested. And yeah, I mean, like, we could technically go up here to retest this 40K area. And if you put on some anchored VWAPs, let's just take a look at this. Goddamn. So an anchored VWAP from the all-time high, and another one from, I think, the Corona low. Yeah, that would get us around this 40, 39K. So there's big resistance, right, at where we would, retest the channel here. That could happen. That's obviously a scenario. I do have some, like, high time frame levels. Let's see, which one is it? I think it's this one. Nope.
Yeah, what I like about these anchored VWAPs is that you take, like, basically a pivot point and then see what the average positioning is from all the traders in there. And what often happens is that you can flip bias based on that. But we often see that mean reversion. I think that's what you're referring to, right? Like, it reverts back, tests that level in a way, and we have to see what happens at that level to be more sure about, like, longer term direction. But it would definitely be a good level to take profit on if you are long. And
for sure. No, so
this
is what makes it difficult if you're a spot, if you're a spot Bitcoin holder, or, because there's no confirmation. Like, yeah, you can, these are obviously, right now is a good time. I would say it's historically a good time to buy Bitcoin, but it doesn't mean that, if we break up to here, that doesn't mean we're going to all-time high, right? You can buy at 16K, or if you bought at 15K, great. You just made 100% return. And then it's human nature to be like, oh, well, you know what? Like, we're going to do this. But you don't know that until we get there. And what's more likely, I think, is something like this. So it's very difficult, I think, to I guess be a spot buyer and think, all right, if we're moving up, we're going to continue to go up, unless something like this happens, you know. And it would be even safer, in my opinion, to get in, you know, at this retest, because at the end of the day, like, you know, we're not trying to. It would be great if you caught the bottom, yes, but you know, well, that's a 80% move. Well, what would it be if we went here? So from this channel to this channel, that's another 120% move. Like that's also fucking phenomenal gains. Even if you don't get this bottom here, right? Like, I think we would all be happy if your spot Bitcoin doubled. But then again, you need that confirmation. If we get back inside this channel, then that's confirmation that we're fucking back in a bull market. Until that happens, in my opinion, we're in a bear market. And I was showing this to you guys earlier, right? So locally, the level to beat, again, we pulled the range from the 150-day range that we were in. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, it's still there. So the point of control, right? Point of control, for the viewers who don't know what this is, this red line is basically where the price level that the majority of the volume in this range took place. So we know that there's a lot of traffic in this red line. So until we are able to get back inside this range, reclaim it, and then up, you know, I'm thinking it's more likely that we're going to continue to move down or sideways. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, that's a clear statement here, especially for like midterm.
Oh, sorry. And then just another thing I wanted to show you guys. So on the log scale, I'm also certainly waiting for this pull. So from the Corona low, God, all right, to the high, you have your golden pocket again around this 10,000, 11,000 zone. Let me just see how this looks. Yeah. So we have a couple of nice levels inside this golden pocket at 10K. I have alarms set, obviously, if we do reach the zone, because at the end of the day, everyone would love a 10K Bitcoin. You know, everyone who is, especially if you were buying up here, right? Well, maybe not if you were buying up here, but a 10K Bitcoin would be phenomenal. And on a monthly perspective, let's just get rid of this shit. On a monthly perspective, if we can wick, right? We can have a monthly candle sort of open, wick down to this 10K, and then close back above, you know, this that 13K high. And that would, to me, that would be very bullish. That would be very bullish if we get a monthly close, if we get a monthly that goes down to 10K and then closes above like 13K. That would tell me that, okay, maybe we've seen a high time frame bottom, you know. If that happens, like I would love for that to happen.
Awesome. So conclusion is we would love to see 10K as a bottom, which has quite some confluence also in my analysis. Libs, is that also something you're looking at? Do you want to open your chart?
Let me just see if I can.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at something similar here. But first, I want to talk about something which happened. We all know what happened in the beginning of November, right? So this cucumber of a person tweeted, "Things have come full circle. I'm a lying thief and I fucked up basically. And so what happened was we had a major daily candle breaking the range lows of this range right here, as you can see. Like that was obviously the FTX fiasco. And something interesting happened here, right? So Bitcoin came in and bounced off range lows, right? At the same time, so this is the S&P 500 up here. So at the same time as the S&P 500 started bouncing at that low, Bitcoin bounced at the range lows. Now on November the 10th, which is this candle right here, you had this huge candle on the S&P 500, which was caused by the core inflation rate in the US coming in lower than expected. So rumors of peak inflation were flying around and investors were like super risk on ish, right? That was like the rest of the market it's super bullish, right? But Bitcoin did this, right? So while the legacy markets did that, like did this, and everyone was just buying, hoping for the Fed to come out and say like, yeah, we're all good, we're gonna not hike rates as much. FTX came along and did this. So if the FTX scenario would not have happened, I'm pretty sure that Bitcoin would be trading in the upper part of this range right here, and perhaps maybe even breaking above. So what happened with FTX was we created a new, very significant resistance area, which otherwise wouldn't have been there, which creates like the path of least resistance for Bitcoin now is absolutely to the downside. Like the breakdown area on FTX right here, which is this, the range lows here at around 18.6, 19K, which I believe Syra looked at as well. That's going to be like a major level to reclaim. But not only that, we also have this range that we're currently trading inside now, and this is a pretty significant range, right? So for us to even come up and test this level, we need to get above a significant level, which is 16.5 or the 16.7 area, which is right here. And then obviously we have to get above another level, which is that one. And I do expect that, with current conditions, we saw the Fed coming out during the FOMC saying they did hint on like some slowing down, but nothing obvious. But then in the last couple of days, we have seen Fed speakers being very vocal about the fact that they are not going to stop until the job is done, right? Which caused the S&P 500 to top out, and we're going to look at that later. And we had this move right here, mostly caused by the stuff going on in China with the protests, right? But we're not testing that level. And given the macroeconomics, I do think that it's highly likely that Bitcoin is going to get rejected in this level right here. If we go down to the 1 hour, we'll see that it's trading close to the reload zone here. It's a major, range EQ, the middle of the range right here. I do think we're going to move lower. And the question is then, what happens when we test that low time frame breakout level right here? Will we bounce here, or will we just go straight down? Well, of course, we need to have some catalyst for that to happen. So imagine if we come down and test this level, and while testing that level, China comes out and says like, there's no way we're going to be opening up. COVID cases are just skyrocketing. CPI comes out, shows that US inflation is not peaking, it's actually higher, and stuff like that. We have the energy crisis in Europe, like we talked about in the last live streams 2 months ago. That could be worsening, right? And if any of those things gets worse down here, we're most likely going to break down, because there's like the next level below is the same level as Syra looked at. Let's remove all of this. And that's the level that also coincides with the 0.886 fib, which comes in almost perfectly at around 10, 11K right here, which is this, the most obvious level for Bitcoin on the weekly. And that's the next level. There's no levels below here. Like here, this range was formed on the 2007 top. That this is an obvious bottom. Like creating a range low here, it's obvious, right? And the next obvious level is the 10K region. And this region spans from, in my opinion, I think it spans all the way from 8.5 up to 12 or even 13K. So it's a big level, but I do think that if we have to pick one level where Bitcoin will bottom, it's going to be this one. And then you have to think about the fact that we're talking about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is not going to bottom where we think it's going to bottom. It's going to be bottom probably here or here. Like that's just the way it works. It's like we thought the Bitcoin bottom was here. Down here. Thought the bottom was here, and then COVID came along. So it's like Bitcoin never bottoms where you think it will bottom, and it never tops where you think it will top. In my opinion. So yeah, this level is the most obvious level for me to get tested to the downside for Bitcoin. And quite frankly, I mean, if we look at levels to the upside, I mean, for me, it's simple. We have this general area. Well, let's just make a big one somewhere here, right? So if we manage to make our way through this low time frame range, and reclaim range low of this one, and then by some magic reclaim range low, and then some by more magical price action we reclaim range highs, we might have something like this, and then we retest that level. Now, I'm of the opinion that if we get something like this, it will only happen if the macroeconomics are looking better. So if the Fed comes out and says that we have succeeded in getting inflation down, and we're now onwards to our target of 2%, which is probably never going to happen. But anyway, if we do if this plays out, we have to have bullish macroeconomics. So we're probably going to come down and test this level if we have like a high time for rejection here with price action, something like this, right? And if we do get this, I mean, in hindsight, it's going to be obvious that this was the high time frame bottom, right? So it's just a question of finding good levels, looking for a bounce, and then looking for that confirmation of bullish market structure. And to be clear, there is no signs of a bullish market structure on the Bitcoin chart, none whatsoever, in my opinion. So for people I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people getting lots of retweets, tweeting about how this is the Bitcoin bottom, maybe wait for some confirmation, right? Because there's nothing about this that is bullish. Like, do you guys have anything for me to kind of make me change my mind of this being bullish?
None. So about
Not
the are people on Twitter? So I'm not really on Twitter, but are people still really saying these are probably the same people who have been tweeting the bottom is in like at 34K, and then they must have done it again at 25K, and then again at 17K. So I can't believe.
Yeah, man. Of course, it's gonna be the people that just farm for engagement. My point is not to follow the biggest accounts on Twitter. My point is look for confirmation, look for bullish breaks, market structure. It's actually quite simple, So a lot of people on Twitter, they go on Twitter, they follow people and look for advice from the biggest accounts because they think if they have 200 or 300,000 followers, they have to be really great traders, So.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, this guy says that. I had a guy tweet to me the other day like, oh, I think you're going lower, but this guy says we're going higher. I'm like, yeah, okay, but maybe wait for some confirmation, And it's so simple. Like, it's so simple. You all know about lower highs and lower lows. Well, wait for that to shift, And where is that going to shift? Well, like, we obviously don't know, but we can map out the levels, and I really like this level around 10K. I don't think it's gonna happen, But I didn't think we were gonna be trading down here, and either.
Yeah, and I want to give a little bit of a counter argument to that. I fully agree with that level around 10K being absolutely great. I think it might actually be higher at 12K too, like somewhere in that zone. But for some people, it might actually not matter too much. I think, like if you want to have that longer term time period and you want to hold on longer and you still believe crypto is the future, and you want to grab some Bitcoin and Ethereum, some people would just be better off DCAing because they can watch these charts all day. And if they can accept that Bitcoin and Ethereum can do another minus 50%, but they're still DCAing, it could work for them. I just wouldn't, the question is like when to start that dollar cost average. When do you start your first buys? Because some people were indeed advising that stuff already when Bitcoin was at 35K or at 30K. Well, that was definitely not the level. But I can understand, looking at some of these like indicators that might work a little bit longer term. You could say that for some people it might work, as long as they understand like it could go minus 50%. But still, if you think that the cycles are still intact and we will see in 2 or 3 years another Bitcoin all-time high, and you can't really time the bottom, like such an approach might be better. But still, like, I personally haven't started that process yet. I rather like just yield farm some stuff and then put those profits into Ethereum or Bitcoin. And that's what I basically just started that process. And then from there, I can like put in a cash position eventually. But one thing I'm still looking at, and which I often use, is some deviation band where Bitcoin tries to move within, and it often lines up with these big volume peaks at the bottom. So I can show you this one or this one or this one, which often is where a lot of liquidations happen and the market finds a temporary pivot. As we concluded, Bitcoin has broken out of this range here, and it had like that first leg down. I think I assume there will be another leg down, which would bring us again in this zone over here, where Bitcoin might find at least some temporary bottom. But looking at some other indicators, I think it might actually be also like a bear market bottom if it happens. So I would at least start building some exposure on the long side, but I wouldn't want to do that here, somewhere in the middle. I really want to see that edge being tapped. So yeah, I think we might not see like 8K, but I can always be wrong. I think that's such a scenario where people just think that's the optimal entry, and as you said, you might get front run, where people buy slightly higher. But we'll see, because especially, and this might be a good bridge towards looking at, for example, an S&P 500, like what is TradFi doing. And I looked at this chart this morning. I read a report which I agreed with. Like, if we look at this S&P 500, it has been clearly in some kind of a downtrend over here. This rally up from the lows was basically a short covering rally, and the liquidity is quite shit still after this moment, and after like inflation was peaking. Liquidity was pooled also from traditional markets, which makes these erratic moves possible, and which makes also these short covering rallies possible. And what we've seen so far, and I might want to remove this line, is that on every downward move, we see the S&P retest some kind of resistance or previous support, and then continues to move lower. So we had that over here. I think this one counts too. This one counts too, and we might be at a moment where that might happen again. And you could always like draw some Fibonacci's on there too, if you like, but it's just all for confluence. And if we do the same approach with these bands, we see that it moves from like a lower band where it stops out these longs. People start being bearish at the bottom, and price starts to rally, and then we see it top out when it goes a little bit into these red bands, and shows like, hey, this is where a lot of the shorts have been stopped out too. So I think S&P 500 might be at a pivot point, and it might be interesting to see like, hey, if it if it goes down again, and I'm also looking like at 100 moving average, if it falls down below that moving average again, like it did here or here, what will happen to Bitcoin? Like we saw Libs mentioning a decorrelation where the traditional market went up, one of the biggest gains on in months, and basically crypto still dumped because of FTX. So there was some decoupling going on, but will that correlation be back in the charts when maybe the S&P 500 goes down? So that might be actually the lag lower, and that would be interesting to see, where all markets just have a lag lower, and we might see like peak fear in all markets. And yeah, it's when stuff breaks when you have to really pay attention. Some people are paying attention because they get these liquidation mails, but if you're luckily in cash, then you could pay attention and maybe start to allocate. What's your opinion on the S&P 500 and the recent rally?
We talk to me. Yeah. All right. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Yeah. Is it on?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it's on.
All right. So this is the last live stream right here. This is the last one we had 2 months ago, I believe. And we talked about how. So let's go back here.
Wait a second. Are you implying that all our trader roundtables like lined up with market tops? I have to see like when we did the first one, but it might also be that was in March. That was in March.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You're gonna look that up. While I do this, you should look that up. Anyway, so this is the last live stream right here, and there I remember talking about how we're hitting this trend line right here, and we have a possible bullish break in market structure, and I remember talking about how it's not likely, it's not likely because the macro really looked really bad, worse than it was right now. But that bullish break in market structure would obviously be this, right? So if we did get that, everyone would be happy and we would be back in a risk-on market. Now, we also talked about the S&P 500 potentially coming down and testing the 50% fib, right? So the 50% fib of the move, which is from the COVID low to the all-time highs. So we said that if the S&P 500 comes down here, and I'm pretty sure we were in agreement with that analysis. Now let me show you what happened when we actually came down and tested the 50% fib. Well, that's the bottom, right? So we came down, we hit that 50% fib, and that was the bottom of the current move that we're seeing on the S&P 500. That also happened while, of course, Bitcoin were bouncing around at this range low, as which I was talking about previously. And what happens now is you can also see that I'm using the channel tool here, not the trendline tool, but I'm using the channel to get like a wider trend line, because I do think it makes sense to have a buffer zone around the trend line. It's not perfect because you can see that the trend line would go like this. Why is it not extending? Let's see if I can extend. So the trend line would go like this, and that's the upper part of the channel. So you see that it haven't hit that one here, but if you add a channel, it kind of makes sense. You could argue that it's at least hitting the buffer zone around that trendline area, confluent with that resistance area right here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to add the fibs of this move, see where the reload zone is, and it comes in pretty nicely at that support level below. So I do think that what we're seeing here is a possible local top for the S&P 500, and it's quite likely that we're going to come down and test the 0.618 or the 50 right here. And the question then is like, if we bounce there, like first of all, what will happen to Bitcoin from that move, like from that move down here? Because right now I think the most likely move for the S&P 500 is down to this level. So what will happen on Bitcoin if that happens? Well, I think it's we're at least going to go down and test the lows, right? Down here. I think that's quite likely. But we know that when the S&P 500 starts moving, if it's correlated with Bitcoin, or if Bitcoin is correlated with S&P 500, the moves of Bitcoin is bigger. But I do think that if the S&P 500 comes down and tests that 50% area, the support area, I think Bitcoin comes down and tests this area. Now, if the S&P 500 breaks down, we have a huge level below. If you zoom out, now we're not going to look at this level because that's just crazy, right? That's like the 2008 financial crisis stuff. We're probably not going to go down there. It would be insane though, like 2K on the S&P 500. That would probably send Bitcoin to definitely down to 10, maybe even lower. But we do have like this whole level down here is quite interesting for me, right? And I think that's the level that might get hit if Bitcoin were to drop down here, right? Because it is a big move on Bitcoin, but the moves on Bitcoin gets much bigger relative to the S&P 500. And when the S&P 500 breaks a significant level, it's not only the S&P 500. You got to remember this is a good indication of the current risk sentiment. So when the S&P 500 breaks a level, most other global equities, if not all of them, are going to break down as well. And most risk assets are just going to break down. And obviously Bitcoin being the volatile asset here is just going to go even lower. So I do think that we're at a pivot point, just like you said, and that pivot point on the S&P 500 would be this 4K to maybe 4.2. So a reclaim of this level would be great. And if the S&P 500 does reclaim that level, which is probably not going to do, there's a high probability that they will reclaim the range lows. But it's so frustrating because if FTX wouldn't have happened, we would have been far above range highs here if the S&P 500 breaks out, which is just very frustrating. But I guess it's better sooner than later. Better it happens at the bottom instead of somewhere mid bull market.
One comment on the S&P 500 chart, I think it would make sense that it retests that zone you mentioned, because of course the money printer went on in during Corona periods, and it was already like an inflated market based on just money printing. So retracing that value might actually make sense. So from that perspective, I think I want to see that retrace too.
You're not looking down here, are you?
No. It's like the 2020.
Here,
yeah. So the breakout from that high just after 2020, that's when basically up only happened in the market.
It would make sense, right? Because this is the COVID bottom, right? So this is COVID, and what happened here was the government just, all right, we're going to save the planet. We have to print money. We have to print money, right? So and what I like about this is you could look at this as the 618 here comes in at such a nice level, because this might be when the effect of the money printer really starting getting parabolic, right? Where everything is, look at this. There's no retraces here. This is on a weekly, and there's almost no major weekly retraces on that uptrend. It is absolutely exploded. And it kind of feels like, looking from a technical point of view, the market retracing that, as you said, retracing the money printing machine, this would just fit very nicely with that level, right? To get back to natural levels, if you will.
Yeah, it is. Syra, anything else to add? Otherwise, we're going to look at Ethereum for the last 8
I think
minutes of the
it's
stream.
more so just the timing of it, right? I think, and a lot of what you see here is what Libs just covered, right? So I also have this trend line inside this channel. By the way, I've had this channel on since like over here, April. And yeah, this, if we do go up to this 4,100 area over here, like that's a great spot for traders to enter short on the S&P, right? There's a lot of confluence in this area, and we haven't quite gotten there yet. I thought that the high was over here, but this happened. We didn't quite break this high yet. And now we're getting a little bit of a pullback, a small retracement. Maybe that'll bring us up to there and then down. But the general idea is still the same, right? We're going to go lower. My issue, I think, with these areas that you pointed out, like over here, is the timing of it. Because, and I'm not a macro guy or a fundamental guy, but from my understanding, right, there are a lot of analysts out there who think that next year will be the beginning of the recession, right? If it is next year as the beginning, and let's say price gets down to your levels by like middle of next year, is that really a recession?
Well, the counter argument for that is when they often call a recession, it's always almost the end of the recession in the market. So the recession isn't seen in the market itself. So I think it might be actually a moment where when they start to call it really a recession, that's where you have to start looking at the market and maybe start building some positions on the long side. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I like that.
The market isn't that way forward looking. And one other thing that I noticed in previous studying some previous recessions is that especially in 2008 we saw also worries about inflation. But after the recession, like the first asset that was moving was basically gold, because there was like peak inflation also at the bottom, or peak recession worries at the bottom. People were like, oh, the only asset that there is gold. So it might also bring an argument for Bitcoin if you believe that the digital gold thesis. The question then is like, hey, is it not just a beta that a risk asset just moves more when the market starts going up? Probably it is. So it's either like all the narratives could be true, but at least look for signs of a reversal when that peak fear, whether it's inflation or recession, happens. So yeah. Don't believe the headlines. That's often the case.
Do you guys want to? I have a bunch. I have to sort of clean this stuff out. Well, I guess I can go over it. My Ethereum analysis. Shit. I think I pointed this out to the people. God. In in the DED group, my areas that I wanted to see. Let's see. Sort of my spot buy area, like major area in this 400 to 300 zone, right? This is where me personally, I'm going to start buying spot ETH. Now I have this Gartley harmonic here. Let me just which, if it does play out, then maybe we'll get a nice bounce here around 600 to bring us up maybe back up to here, which is a nice, that's almost a 100% bounce. Because how these harmonics work is usually you get a quick impulse move, right? So if this plays out, it would look something like this. and then I would expect that. That's what I would like to see. And yeah, I mean, if Ethereum does not, if this area does not hold, then I'm looking down here, right? I would stop buying my spot ETH. Hopefully, I would have entered a hedge, and I would look for 130. I don't think like if this happens, then Libs's analysis on the S&P 500, that lower level, that's probably, if the S&P 500 goes there, then yes, we'll see an ETH here. If it goes to your higher S&P 500 targets, then I would see that over here. And the same thing with Bitcoin, right? If those lower levels are hit for the S&P 500, then it's, in my opinion, it will be a Bitcoin under 6K, right? We're going to see 5K, 3K Bitcoin. Like that's worst case scenario. Which, we're not there yet. We can only speculate. But this is generally my thesis for ETH. I'm not trying to buy ETH now. Certainly not now. For me, the ETH BTC, is this it? No. ETH BTC, like, we're still up here, right? I mean, it still, I guess, makes more sense to wait until we do get, Ethereum back down somewhere here, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah, but it would make sense, but I think that it didn't break down yet versus Bitcoin, and that's very interesting. Especially if we're looking at some of the events on Ethereum where it had to merge and it became deflationary. So it might actually just stay up to par with Bitcoin. So there is some relative strength. It doesn't mean that Ethereum is like a good buy in USD terms, or was in the last year. But like comparing it to Bitcoin, it held up pretty well. And normally Bitcoin would just underperform in a bear market and overperform in a bull market. But with some of these changes, it might be that it just performs up, on par with Bitcoin itself. So I'm really wondering what would happen in a bull market with Ethereum. Would it just be like equally moving equally to Bitcoin, or would it still outperform? That's interesting.
Well, the most interesting sort of idea about Ethereum that I like a lot is that it's one cycle behind, right? Which would be awesome, because that would mean that, obviously, that the upside potential for ETH, if you're someone who doesn't dabble with different altcoins, then you can see like this maybe another 10x or something like that, right? From or more, whatever Bitcoin did its last cycle, we could see something similar to Ethereum, which I think was like, that was Bitcoin from what, 1,000 to 20K or something like that, 800 to 20K. I mean, I'd love for that to happen for ETH. Imagine that, like a 10K ETH or something.
That's still like a target people had in the last bull run, but it could still make sense at some point. And the returns would be absolutely insane. But yeah, we saw in the last bear market, Ethereum hit like, what was it, just below $100, and it went to 4,000. Wouldn't surprise me if it could do like a 20x in the next run, at least from the bottom. And as we said, probably won't catch that, but any multiple in the market is quite insane to have. So
Yeah.
that would be insane. Yeah. And any
Should I-
other comments on Ethereum? Because we're already 1 hour in. and we might want to come to some quick conclusions. Of course, if you have any questions, just drop them on Twitter, like tag us or something, and we'll happy to reply. But maybe we could give some final thoughts. What would it be for you, Syra?
For Ethereum,
or like basically all of these coins, like what's most interesting, or levels to watch.
So again, I think for Bitcoin, right, we're in this range, right? Ugh. Sorry. I don't know why I don't have this up, but for now, this is where we are. And until this is broken, I'm thinking we're going to remain here, right? And Libs even brought up 18.6, which is where this channel starts, and I believe it's where this larger channel ends. Right? So where is that? Nope. God, it's gone. Sorry. Well, anyway, it's this area is until reclaimed, then it's certainly either range bound or we go lower to the levels mentioned earlier. That's all it is for me. S&P 500 41 to 42, 4,100 and 4.2K are big areas of resistance. And for now, yeah, it's bearish until signs of strength are seen. You mentioned lower lows as well. So like Bitcoin on the 4-hour, we haven't even made we haven't made a higher high. Right? It's just been lows, lows, lows. There's nothing here that will indicate that higher is coming, at least not yet. So yeah, for now, it's probably sit on your hands, or if you're accumulating, then it might be, a good time to just, I guess, keep doing what you're doing. But I'm personally not. I'm not. I'm sitting on shorts. And yeah, I'm not buying spot yet at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, I've started buying spot Bitcoin when we broke below 20. I mean, that's been the plan all along. I remember, I said, when we were approaching the the 20K region, I said, as soon as Bitcoin breaks below 20, I'm going to start a dollar cost average strategy that might last, a very long time, most likely. And I'm okay with prices below 10K. So it's like very small purchases just to make sure that, because like when we were at the highs, everyone wanted to buy Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden we were down to 20K and we were at the levels where people said like, oh, imagine if we would just be buying Bitcoin at 20K prior to this bull market. Like, it's that reverse psychology, right? And so I'm really trying to work against that, right? Try to say like when people are like, oh, I'm leaving crypto and I like this, we're breaking below 20K, it's over. Well, that's when I can have to force myself to start buying small amounts. And from a timing perspective, I do feel like we're getting close to bottom, right? I do not think we're going to have a long-term recession which will make all markets just break down. I think we are getting closer to peak inflation, right? And the question is like, will peak inflation in the US coincides with because US inflation is driven by like normal inflationary stuff with the money, the printing of money, while a lot of the inflation in Europe also has to do with the energy crisis, and of course the war in Ukraine has some effects on that as well. So I don't think they're going to coincide together at the same time, but if they do, that's most likely going to be the macro bottom, right? And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. If it doesn't, it's going to be low targets. And for my dollar cost average strategy, I mean, you talked about that before, Abe, where you said that you basically talked about the difference of trading and investing, where I talked about waiting for a bullish break in market structure, and you talked about, dollar cost average would be a good strategy. Now I'm combining that, right? So my dollar cost average strategy is very very small amounts, and then when we have that bullish break in market structure, that's where I increase or buy with the rest of the amounts that I have left. And I think that is something that people should be doing. Not financial advice, but I think they, obviously, I really do think that people should be buying Bitcoin. I do think they should be starting now. I know that's not something I should be saying, but buy Bitcoin with small amounts and get ready to see a 50% decline of that bag and manage your risk accordingly. But in current market conditions, like buying Bitcoin is most likely in the next 5 years going to be an insanely good investment in my opinion.
And it wouldn't matter in 5 years from now, if we are sitting at, let's say, 70K, 80, even higher, it wouldn't matter if you were buying at 16K or 12 at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's generally, that I see that too. I definitely see that too.
Then on Ethereum, I think we did some TIA on Ethereum, but I think it's such a complicated chart. I think like when I'm doing TIA on Ethereum, it's like it's weird. I also tried to compare the Ethereum versus Bitcoin and the Ethereum USD chart, and it's like I can't get a good read on that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Ethereum will hold up in the next bull market in the next cycle, because right now,
it's funny you say that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because I don't trade Ethereum. I don't, because I don't think it respects TA nearly as well as Bitcoin. So I don't trade it because of the same thing that you said. It's weird. The charting it is very strange. Like I don't like it. There are altcoins that respect TA, in my opinion, better than ETH. I just don't like trading it.
I agree, and it's I think so. For me, Ethereum is purely a long-term investment. Bitcoin as well, because I usually don't trade Bitcoin. Like I see a trade on Bitcoin, and I like to translate that trade into an altcoin with a cleaner trend. But Bitcoin and Ethereum for me are like my only long-term investments and the only investment currencies I'm looking at while I'm trading everything else. But Ethereum for me is just purely long term. While I mean, we're talking about 5 years in the future. I mean, you guys probably have better idea of this than I have. But imagine, like, I'm always thinking about a future where there's going to be smart contracts on Bitcoin, where you're able to have a decentralized exchange on Bitcoin, and I would love to really see that, because I do feel like in at the core, I do feel like not a Bitcoin maximalist, but definitely a Bitcoin maximalist, where where
we'll have flying cars on the blockchain and solve world hunger because of the blockchain. Like that's absolutely what will happen. No, just kidding.
Well, maybe
some good changes in crypto and in self custody, for sure, as long as the teams and the projects keep building, and that's why I think our general conclusion from all of us, we're looking for lower, but that's because we just want to see that optimal entry point, and otherwise we'll just allocate on a market change, a structure or a change in trend. So yeah, that might be a good conclusion here.
By the way, and just to also again to conclude and to get into a little bit of how I see Bitcoin philosophically, I think we can all say that it's not an inflation hedge, and it's not going to be used as currency. Like this is a thing. This is a new technology that was created that we still don't know how to classify it. Right? We don't know what its going to be used for yet. Not yet. We're betting on it for something in the future. It's going to be used for something. Right now, I think the best way to describe it is it's a good way to transfer money from one part of the world to another. It's the most efficient way of doing that. But it's, it being labeled inflation hedge, or it being labeled, as a way of buying and selling things, I think is wrong, right? Because this is why you get people on the news saying, well, it's not this, it's not that, and it sort of gives it a bad rep. But it didn't come out and say it was anything, really. It just sort of came to be, and this is what it does, and it does the same thing, and it will continue to do the same thing forever. So
yeah, well, I think also, we have to remember it's like it's a revolutionary asset that kind of got born in the ashes of the financial crisis 2008. And I mean, for me, it's quite obvious what Bitcoin is. It's freedom to transact with anyone, anywhere, however they want, without any censorship or anyone taking your money because you have, I don't know, like you live in a country where certain ideas are not accepted, so they're going to block your money like that. That's the future, guys. We have central bank digital currencies coming, and you might call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but the future is not just rainbows and sunshines. It's sunshine. What the fuck's that like? Anyway, it's pretty. The future does not look very good with the way the central banks around the world are setting up central bank digital currencies based on blockchain technology. So we need something like Bitcoin to be able to be a counterpart to that, because once cash is gone, once the privacy of buying stuff with cash and not leaving a fingerprint, when that's gone, we have very little left, right? So Bitcoin is super important for the future of the digital humanity, in my opinion. And that's why I buy Bitcoin. That's the only reason. Well, of course, money is one reason, but that's one of the reasons why I'm buying Bitcoin and not funds that tracks the S&P 500.
Yeah, it's a hedge against the current monetary system.
Yeah, definitely.
If that fails, then you have nothing else other than this.
Yeah. On that note, it's probably going to be good. I mean, everyone's going to be great.
Yeah, let's just
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. I hope you're not in front of the charts in December then. So enjoy the time.
What are you saying? I'm every day I'm at the show.
I don't do
your normal glasses too, right?
Look at this. This is my home. I live here. I can't escape the reality of these charts.
Sleep in a beanbag under the desk. We've seen that, man. We've seen that.
Yeah, well, you see, I got the sofa right here. That's where I'm sleeping. I got the screens here.
I'm just going to press the button that ends the broadcast. It's probably easier for everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Anyway, well, thanks for coming on, and thank you for watching. You can always watch recording back on YouTube. We gladly provide that to you. But thanks, Lips, for joining in again. Thanks, Syra, and we'll see you in another Traders Roundtable.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Take care.